Everybody has to do that at least once this meeting. All right, we are live in Boston and Washington. Don't ever get to old, does it, Kelly? All right, welcome everybody to our information session. If you'd like to join me for our open here. Waitai Coastal-Burwood-Linwood. Kia mata tai e hea kia te atakura e tio e uka e hau tia nuri. Right. Yeah. Do we have any apologies? No apologies. So just for the public, we have an information session today. The first item is new Brighton Library mechanical HVAC upgrade. Required additional plant space, and then we have transport road, so just going through transport projects and etc. etc. So first, Patrick. Yeah. Would you like to run through and then answer questions at the end, or you're happy to take questions?
Happy to take questions as they come up. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so the questions will still come through me, but yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, anyway, Patrick Whedon, I'm the project manager on the New Brighton Library project. The main components is the upgrade to the mechanical plant there. I think since the library was built in 1999, there's been 4 generations of HVAC plant that has gone through there. It's located on the southern corner of the building, there underneath the ramp. And if you've been there recently, you'll notice that they're very rusted. Plus, in terms of the upgrade and the HVAC at the moment, it is not providing sufficient amount of hot or cool air for the occupants, users and things like that. So we have gone through a phase of concept planning with the mechanical consultant, etc., to look at this and to look at some various options for that. I don't know, do I get to drive that? Do I?
No.
All right, so here we go. So anyway, I think I've covered some of that. So we're obviously looking to improve the HVAC system itself. There are some other sort of minor issues about ventilation and pressurization and filtration that will be addressed to the project. And we're also looking at long-term benefits, and we're looking at a 20 or 30-year life cycle cost when we're choosing options for what we would put in there. And one option that has been considered and is enabled or future-proofed as a part of the option that we've gone with is that by putting in a hydronic or water-based system instead of an air-based system, which has currently, is that if we wanted to, we can tap into the artesian system, say connect into the hot pools further up, which would supply us with that water that we could utilise for a long-term option, which has a great benefit in terms of efficiency and longevity. But in the medium term, we're going with some air source heat pumps that are water-based, but we were looking to sufficiently boost them, protected from the corrosive environment down there. So they will be a propane-based unit, which has a much better environmental or less environmental impact in terms of its, emissions. And also it's a lot better choice. And they're a lot larger units than what you can see in that bottom right-hand corner at the moment. And you'll see that in later slides. Part of the project is also to upgrade the out-of-date building management system as well. So that enables us to obviously control the use of it and get more efficiency there.
So currently it's using, so what's it using now as compared to propane?
It's just normal refrigerant, whatever number that is. Yeah, so yeah, it's the old style, which is, it's got a lot higher emission base.
FCs.
Yeah. It also enables us to future-proof the northern end. So part of the project, and I think it's not on that slide, it's on a later slide. We will be supplying pipework, hot and cold water to the northern end of the building. And that northern end doesn't have a HVAC system in it at the moment. So when we want to, we can tap into that pipe work and provide fan core units that we can tap into that cold water there. So that's about the project. On the right-hand side, at the top, you can see a picture from the plant room, which is on the southern end, underneath the building, basically. And you can see there's a lot of rusted out panels there with louvers are if you walk around the southern corner of the building. So that's where a lot of the upgraded equipment will go in, but that space does not allow us for the air source heat pumps to go in. This is just the stages and timeline of the project. So concept was completed back in April, where we did look at a variety of options for that HVAC system. We have largely finished developed design. We've just gone out to tender, and that has closed. So we have got a number of submissions for the mechanical works. Our timeline for this project is we were trying to get the HVAC system up and running before December school holidays. There are very long lead times on the air source heat pumps. They take at least 20 weeks. And so what we made a choice to go out and procure those early and place an order for them because they're coming from Italy and they need to leave before August summer school holidays over in Europe, because apparently nothing gets done from that point. So they are on track to be delivered by October, which will enable us, subject to these mechanical works tenders that have just come in, to complete the work in around about November, undertake the work on site in November and complete for the December school holidays. There is an option, if that is not physically possible or it has a lot of commercial risk in relation to that tender, that we would start on the other side of the summer school holidays. So that is still an option that we may have to go to, but we are trying to push to get it completed before December. So that's when we're looking at construction, and that's why we've ordered these 3 propane-based units already. I don't think there's anything there. There's a couple of images of some of the designs where you can see that the coloured filled sections are for new plant equipment that will be going in. The bottom right-hand corner is the plant room that you saw an image of just before. So that's a lot of ductwork. So there's buffer tanks and all sorts of things that's going in there. And just on the left-hand image in the top right-hand corner is where you can see the positioning of the new heat pumps that we have ordered for that. So this is an image of the heat pumps. During concept, there was, you can see in that bottom right-hand corner an image, they were looking at 2 heat pumps at the time, but the consultant realised we needed more capacity in the system. We needed larger units. The propane-based units, I think themselves are a little bit bigger. And so it wasn't until quite late that the consultant identified that we needed that extra space for the air source heat pumps. So at the moment, you can see the left-hand side of that image in the top left is already a plant space. And it's that area to the right, which has currently got some bike racks in it that we're seeking to get the permission. And I believe we had to come back in August for that to utilise that space. The units are about, the dimensions are right there, almost 1.2 wide by just over 2 metres, 2.2 high. The architect has made some renders of what it might look like and given some options of what sort of cladding we could put there. On the western side, this side, the land side, we will be looking to put cyclone fencing as it currently does at the moment. And also on the roof, of course, because we're looking to keep people out of there. But on the eastern side, the seaward side, we're looking to put some screen there to protect it from the salt spray, give it some extra protection. So we've got 3 options there. The first one at the top is the first option on the left-hand side is from the western view, and the right-hand side is from the east. So that has got say a painted ply panel underneath, then cladded with some slats, which are say cedar or something like that. And the look we're going for is on the right-hand side is similar to what's around the hot pools. So that wall we're looking to cover as much of the units as we can, but we're conscious of we want to try and maintain some view and some daylight coming through there. So total wall height would be around 2.2 at the moment, and then a little bit more with the fence, because the fence would probably go up to about 3 metres high, the cage. Then the middle view is just pure fence at the moment, and then on the bottom we have pretty much just like a Hardy's panel that's there, which could be painted, and it could blend in to match the concrete of the pier itself. But that's our three options. Internally, the people have consulted with, they're more keen on the first option there. And I believe that sort of softens the area with a bit of timber. So that's where we've got to. Yeah, a little bit of a dilemma. We've explored other options where we could put the plant space. When the building was built, there was a plant space built on top of the roof. And for whatever reason, they didn't utilise that. They went to where it currently is located. Putting it up on the plant, on the roof at the moment would also be a visual eyesore, I believe. Like if you're on the pier, you probably look back on it, and maybe that's why they didn't put it there. Plus, access is very restricted. There's a very small hatch to get up there in terms of maintaining and changing filters and things like that. And also it would come with a great expense because we'd have to get all the pipework, etc., that's already fed from the southern end up there. We can't fit it into the plant room that we showed because that's needed for other parts of the system. And we've also, I mean, anywhere else to place it would be going into the dunes or anywhere else, and we'd have to run pipe work. So it'd be very expensive for another option. I think that's about it. Here are some longer shots produced by the architect in terms of the render. You can see, unfortunately, the photos were taken on a very dull day, but on the right-hand side, you can see it obviously from the sort of the northeast with, they're putting the render there with that first option. And on the left-hand side, again, you can see it, but it's actually screened by the plants there. And then that space is actually regularly used by maintenance vehicles, as you can sort of see there in the background. I have been liaising with our planning team and our building consent team as well about the needs for that space. So there is, the planning people have told me I need to complete a form in relation to that for a resource consent sort of amendment. Part of that considers the bike racks that are there. When that was consented at the time, there were a minimum of 11 bike racks needed to be in close proximity of the building. There are other bike racks located on the north western side of the building. So the numbers, even though if we did get permission to take out 8 of the racks, so it's a double-sided rack. I'll just go back a step.
Would you be not replacing them or putting some additional?
If we have to, we will, but there are, the feedback has been there's quite a lot of bike racks available for use.
Is it from cyclists or from?
Oh, no, just from basically staff that are using the building at the moment. But yeah, from a consent point of view, we just need to make that number. But so there is 8 racks in those 2 bays, which is not really showing up there, but 8 racks in those 2 bays. If we took out, and they're double-sided, so if we took out 4 of them, we lose 8. We're down to 8 in that space, but then there are quite a few on the other side of the building there. So, but again, I'm open to addressing what the community needs there. I have started liaising with some groups about it. I've spoken to the Residents Association, looking to contact the board riders and things like that, the club there. And also, you know, of course, take advice from this group of what is required. I've also liaising with our engagement team about getting, you know, some form of notice to community here about this is what it's planned to look like. So that's where I got to.
Oh, thanks very much. And I think the library staff will be very excited to be getting something more efficient and up to date. So it's really neat to know. Just a few questions. Thank you. That was.
Can you use your mic, please, Kim?
Geez,
Not that I was
it's
using.
been a while. Yeah, thank you. It was really well explained. Had a wee look down there again today to refresh my memory of what's going on down there. When it comes to the bike breakfast, I've got a question there. Mentioned it. So there's 7 bays in total. So at the moment we're just using the first bay. So the bike racks are on the next 2.
Yes.
So when you say removing the bike racks, you're really just talking about the one.
The bay that we need, yes,
Yeah.
that second bay. So
Okay.
yeah, there's 8 stands, which are double-sided. So we'd be taking half of it.
Thank you. Just also on the key stakeholders, it's great to hear that you've chatted or you're going to with the New Brighton Longboarders. Just wondering, and of course the library, Martini Investments are across the road. Just wondering if you have further see have they sort of just
No, but
it would be quite good just to let them know,
yes.
so it's not a surprise when they see something going
Yes.
out there. And also the people that are very invested in this foreshore is the PA and foreshore, Brighton Foreshore Society. So it'd be really good if you could just give them perhaps the same.
Yes, I would, yes.
Also, the visual side of things are really important, I think, for this community. I really like the way that you're, option 1, that you're trying to link it to the other side with the hot pools. Also, the wooden aspect side also helps with or lessens graffiti, which is a good option. Just wondering if there was potentially possibility when you're looking at the first option, you've just got the wooden slats on the south side. Is there any reason why perhaps there couldn't be some slats on the lower part of the west side, just to give some visual appeal? Because at the moment, I mean, I don't like cages. I understand why there are cages there, they go rusty really quickly. But as you say, it does give a bit of a visual through, which is quite good. But just wondering if there could be some.
Yes, we could do that. I was just looking for the floor plan, which I haven't provided there, but the compound does sort of jut out. It's not not a nice straight line on this western side, but yeah, we can certainly look at that.
Just see what could be more aesthetically pleasing on the west side, because that's where people are sort of looking through.
Yeah, we do. That's where we do have. We're planning to have double gates for access to get the units in and out or to maintain them. So, but if needed, we could have to lower screening timber gates. That for a visual look, if that's
on top of the whatever it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Or
something like that.
what was the other thing I was thinking of there? Oh yes, the other thing was the plywood. Does it actually have to be plywood? Is it possible to, given them the environment, I know it would have to be something like cedar, the slats, but the backing, could the concrete wall not be extended to fix the battens onto? Could the battens?
It could be. I would think that would come with more cost. And
yeah, I'm just thinking of in the long term, perhaps it would be more cost beneficial than the ply. I suppose how thick the ply is.
Yeah, no, not very thick, but yeah.
Or even Corten steel. I mean, something that could.
Yes, I can speak to the architects about that. I'm pretty sure they'll come back with yes, we can do it, but it's quite an expensive option for that.
Sure, we've got a bit of Corten steel around the hot walls as well. The slats, the combination sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, just
So I could come back with some because when I seek permission approval in August, come back with some of those options that have been looked at for that.
Thanks.
That's right.
Thank you very much. Just a question about the August. How would that work with our meeting?
So at this stage, if Patrick meets the authorisation deadline by Friday,
Okay.
it will come to our 10th of August meeting. Otherwise, Patrick's report will come to our 7th of September meeting.
So we're having
However, our 10th of August meeting is a larger meeting than normal because we've merged SCF and business meeting together. So when I have the agenda set with Paul and Jackie, we'll just work out how we're going to lay the reports out, but we'll try and aim to still have our public participation at 4 o'clock. So that's consistent for the community, and we'll just fit the reports in either side of that from 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Right, Celeste.
Thank you. I've only just got one, but just keen to find out in terms of like the location, because I'd be quite keen for some bike parks to go back in. I think it's also for the bigger events as well, making sure that there's capacity there for that kind of extra number of people. I do wonder though, because I was just trying to look on Google Maps where the bike stands are. I've never noticed them before. I'm not very observant probably, but I wonder if it's a good chance to just look at where the best spot would be. Because from my experience of looking at people use the space, people tend to prefer to put their bikes in a really visible spot, so bring it further forward. I don't know how far forward you can go with the consent, but it would be just good to look at a range of options because I've got a few ideas of where there's gaps, but if you could put them in there, that would be kind of ideal rather than having to put them in somewhere for the sake of it.
Also, do you think it's with consulting a bit wider about how many bike racks we need?
I think it's a good opportunity because with things like the fireworks night and all sorts, you get more and more people travelling with different modes. So you're not going to cater to 20,000 people, but it is a chance to put something back better in a better location as well. So I can send through some suggestions if that's helpful. But
that would be good. Yes, because I think
but it's an opportunity.
Kate sent me some photos the other day.
See pathway, and once the mall's up and running, you'll have more and more people coming through and just looking at a responsible bike. But if you can't see it, you won't know it's there. And then if you live in the area, you probably don't know. So just some further thoughts around that would be good. But everything else sounds really good and comes covered off everything else.
Okay.
Right, Greg.
The other bays under the ramp on that south side, do you know what they're used for generally?
No, I didn't. I know that the board riders have some competitions that they base themselves temporarily for the day under there, but I haven't, since I've been on the project, I haven't seen any other sort of use there at the moment.
And the reason I say that is, whether being able to use the next space along or put it towards the end, which is close to the basketball court, because that's where people potentially, like Paul was saying before, being able to see where
the bike racks
are,
sure.
whether they move just slightly that way. So if you're at the basketball court, you can see. Because if there's already other stuff around the entrance to the library and things, it's possibly not needed as close there, but maybe further down. And the other one was around the units. Obviously they've been looked at for being in the soft spray areas. Are they the best units you can put in that space, or are they just a good option?
They are, and we tended for it as well with quite a high spec on anti-corrosive environment. Plus, they're also pressure. Some of the internal components are pressurised to keep that salt spray out. We're also thinking of putting a reticulation system to spray clean water on them every now and then to take extra. So we're trying to do as much as we can to protect them. They'll still be there. They still won't be have as long a life as they would be if they were inland somewhere. But we're trying to do as much as we can.
Cool. Does anyone else have another question before Kim? All right. Yanni, and then come back to them.
Thank you. So I appreciate the detailed technical advice on what's proposed. I guess the bigger question in my mind is putting in like an expensive, elaborate system. How have we future planned for what this library will cater for, given the increase in population, for example, in Brighton? And I've looked at the council website. I know we've got a libraries 2015.
Sorry, that's a question for libraries, not for the team doing the HVAC.
Sure, but
I guess what I'm trying to focus on
what I'm trying to understand is like what flexibility is there if there's significant improvements or additional space to the building. What's the flexibility with this design proposal to cater for growth? And then just the other question was, is there any chance of putting solar into these facilities as well?
We haven't looked at solar for the project, obviously, but there is a roof there. But in terms of modelling of the system, so the mechanical consultant needed to model the internal areas for the required air and heat, hot and cold cooling based on numbers and a bit of future growth is my understanding as well. in terms of room uses and what actually gets used in the room and how much heat they generated and things like that. So that's all been looked at, and there is some extra capacity within that to enable, if there is a busy day, etc. But obviously the space is limited as it is at the moment in terms of square meterage, and we're future-proofed for the northern tenanted areas as well. As I said, we'll cap the pipe work there, and there's a potential other component to this project that we'll be dealing with the northern end at some point. But I can give a further update on that at another time.
Why would you not deal with the northern area now?
Because there's a lot of other works that need to be considered at that end as well. So that's been looked at. So there's things like windows and doors that need to be potentially replaced in that area. And so it's best timed when that package of work might go up. Whereas this package is purely focused on the upgrade and the back end sort of system of it, plus dealing with the library up until the northern side of the foyer space.
And I think from your previous comment, effectively you've got a whole bunch of infrastructure there that can still be reused where the current system is, even though you need to expand the space, piping and ducting. So there's no sense in moving it anywhere. This is the most sensible spot for it.
Yes. Cool. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, it'd be an enormous cost to move it somewhere else. And then we've got all the same issues that I'm presenting for today in terms of visual loss and things.
Thank you.
Last question, Tika.
Just answered my questions. It was about the northern space, so.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Unless you've got one more thing to add or anything like that, we'll have a short break before we go to the roadshow.
Yeah, no, I'll just make sure I get my papers in for the week.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, we are back, streaming live. We have the Transport Roadshow. So in your hands. Oh, yes, I will start out. This is quite long, members. So what we'll do is we'll pause every now and again for questions. So please hold them. You can still ask them, and try to make sure that it's focused on what has been in the presentation. Don't worry, I'll repeat this for the benefit of those absent shortly. Try to keep it focused on what's preceded it, and then we will move on to the next, and then try and do the same thing. And then, so I'm not just saying it for the benefit of one person, but for all of us. And then at the end, if your questions haven't been addressed, then we might be able to cover those then if we're all very well behaved.
Behave, that feels loaded. I'll do my best. Right. Hello everyone. Transport Roadshow. We've done this a few times. Oh, it's not working.
Again,
Sorry.
try again.
Ta-da.
The lesson here, all do it, Cindy's.
I learned that a long time ago.
Especially when it comes to graffiti.
We'll try and give you a sort of an overview. Some of you, I think, will probably have heard lots of this before. Some of you won't. But mainly, I kind of feel a lot of the time you ask questions and there's somebody in the back here going, I'm losing parking outside my house, I'm really cross. And so you can't really ask those questions in kind of good faith, and we probably can't give you answers in a way that is we would normally want to. And so this is probably an opportunity. Well, we see this as an opportunity for you to ask questions that you can't normally ask, and for us to tell you things that we don't normally have an opportunity to tell you. So, yeah. And straight to the unit. Steve is our head of transport. I am manager of planning and delivery. Kathy here is manager of operations, and then I'm afraid Jed is off sick today, but he's our manager of city streets maintenance. So he looks after all the kind of day-to-day picking up bins, fixing bits of road, fixing potholes, fixing curbs. But we'll cover all of that later on. I'll start with this. So we own just under 2,500 kilometres of road across the 16 wards. If we were to have to rebuild all our assets today, it's a bit of a weird feedback echo. If we were to have to replace all our assets today, it would cost us just under $6 billion. Today it's worth about 2.75, and it depreciates at a rate of just over $250,000 a day, which means just to stand still, no improvements, we should be spending about $95 million a year, which is quite a sobering figure, I think. Is a lot of money just to effectively do nothing. So a few stats about what we own in the transport unit. So like it says there, just under 2,500 kilometres of road. Of that, 2,160 kilometres is sealed and 343 kilometres unsealed. Obviously, the majority of the unsealed is on the peninsula, Banks Peninsula, but I think there are bits in your ward as well. That's greater than the entire length of State Highway 1, right from up in Cape Wrangell all the way down to Bluff. So yeah, we own more road than that. We've got 342 kilometres of cycleways. That's about the distance to Picton, 207 kilometres of shared path. That almost gets you to Tekapo. Streetlights I've got up there, 42,000. We've also got 357 sets of traffic signals, soon to be 358. If we can get ourselves organised on Burwood Marrow. 258 CCTV sites. Nearly 61,000 road signs. We also have 207 pay-by-plate parking meters, which were obviously in the news last week. It was all rather exciting, wasn't it, Steve? We've got the bus stops, 480. That's shelters, I think. But we also own the 4.3 kilometre tram route and all the infrastructure. So the tram company owns the trams. We own all the overhead wires, all the track, all of that stuff. which means we get audited in the same way that KiwiRail get audited. We're a rail provider. Yeah. So there are some weird responsibilities that we have associated with that. And then street trees, that says there 62,000, give or take a bit. We also have 107 hectares of landscape sites. That's about 2/3 the size of Hagley Park that we own and have to look after. So the point I'm trying to give you with this is there's a huge breadth and volume of stuff that we have to look after. The roads are obviously ours, but I think once you get into bits of the tram and
berms and trees,
it doesn't always feel like transport, but we still have to deal with it all. I was going to stop here for the first set of questions about what we own.
Yes, so just a reminder for members, this is quite a long presentation, and so we're going to stop a few times along the way, and so let's keep questions about what has preceded it, and then once we've addressed that, then we'll go on to the next section, and it's not trying to raise anything that may be covered in the future until the end when we know that it hasn't. If that makes sense, the space-time continuum have been explained, right? So any questions in terms of what the council owns? So that, yes, Yanni?
Thank you for the statistics. It's really cool to get the statistics up. Do you know in the roads, how many of those are the old deep dish channel?
Oh, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. We've got them all mapped.
180.
So through the chair, that does sound about right. So I think we've done a bit of work on that with Councillor Donovan over the last few months. We do have a layer in our asset management tool that shows all the deep dish channel areas, and we could even send you a map showing where all the areas are across the city if that was helpful.
It would be helpful,
Yeah,
thank you.
I guess at a high level, what I was keen just to understand with the total figure of roads, and appreciate there's a rural and an urban component, but do we have a sense of the 5.7k that we're replacing each year? How much of that is the old deep dish versus newer infrastructure?
Oh, top of my head, no, I wouldn't know.
But we can understand it sometime.
Yeah, so through the chair, that's certainly something we can come back and give advice on.
Cheers. Thank you.
Sorry, Yanni, could you please send me that second request by email just so I've got that?
Right. Any further questions around what we own? No, okay, to you.
So I'll jump into what we do. So education, I'll start with that. That's always the sort of nice one that gets us plaudits. Cycle safe training, there were 3,600 odd students that went through the cycle safe training. And I guess it's your team, Kathy. I don't know if you want to
you
chip in. The team also do what's it called, Crash Bash, don't they? Which is the big
We used to.
or used to. Oh, out the loop.
So we do have a road safety component in our education. The parameters for what we do now have changed with NZTA changing what we can spend our funding on. So we don't do campaigns as such as we used to do, like the marketing campaigns. That's all done at a national level, but we can certainly share what NZTA does. But our road safety education is very much around supporting those that are already out there delivering. So we're not doubling up on education, and we're using the experts that deliver good road safety education to provide that. So we do. Sorry. No, we do Kickstart motorcycle safety event most years, which is the obviously motorcyclists, highly vulnerable road user, a challenging one to address through infrastructure. There are some things we can do to help minimise the risk to them if they do come off, but obviously being vulnerable. So education and behaviour is a real key target for them. So yeah, we do have a quite a strong motorcycle safety focus.
I think that is a stat to be proud of as well. That as a council, we've got to over 3,500 pupils and help them learn to ride the bikes and actually ride the bikes in a public environment. So it's definitely one of our good news stories.
Regulatory and development. So we provided advice to over 290 consent applications last year. So that's a whole range of things from kind of standalone houses to big subdivisions and fast track applications, which really test the team because they have to pump out advice in incredibly short timeframes. We also support a large range of other activities, like I said, the road stopping, structures on streets, vehicle crossing applications, which is where you get the drop curbs, the new ones are those, outdoor dining applications, and traffic management applications and auditing. So there's quite a lot of people involved in those kind of regulatory things behind the scenes that you probably never see. But when they go wrong, you come and see us. My goodness, do you come and see us? Capital delivery. Like I said there, in 2025, capital work we delivered 127 million, and we worked on 239 different projects. This year we're nearer to 145 million. We delivered 99.5% of our budget in the financial year just finished. So I think we've done pretty well there. And next year we're looking good to be on target for about 150 million of capital spend. So we're starting to get on top of that condition issue that I said at the beginning about needing to spend 95 million a year just to stand still. If we're hitting our capital spend targets, we're in the right place for that. Lots of that's in capital maintenance. That's reseals, rehab, reconstructions, which we'll talk about later. And we've done a lot in structures renewals as well. So that's retaining walls and bridges. The Infrastructure Commission has advised that organisations like ours should be spending about 60% of their budget on looking after what they've got, as opposed to trying to improve and add new assets. And that's something we've really tried to focus on in the last sort of few months and years. Is to get back on top of the standard day-to-day looking after the assets that are already there.
Yeah, and as part of that, we're currently working through the long-term plan at the moment and working with councillors through our levels of service. We're currently proposing a 75-25 split, so 75% of our capital programme on renewal and looking after what we've got, and 25% on improvements. And the idea behind that is that does exceed what the Infrastructure Commission has recommended, but the Infrastructure Commission's recommendation is fine if you're already starting off in a good position. We want to catch up. There's a bit of a bow wave ahead of us, so we want to hit that hard, and that's why we're proposing that 75% of all our funds go on renewing what we've got, i.e. and looking after what we've got, rather than building new stuff. We still have other levels of service, particularly around safety and other areas, and that's where that 25% on improvements would go towards still building new stuff. That's not set in stone. That's our recommendation from staff point of view, and that dial, as it were, can go one way or the other way, and that will just be worked through as we progress the long-term plan.
Parking enforcement, like I said, there are 67,000 tickets issued in 2025, which is quite a lot. We also enforce bus lanes, including on NZTA roads. So things like Hallswell Road have obviously added to the areas that we need to enforce.
Just to clarify on enforcement, we can do parking enforcement and special vehicle lane enforcement, i.e. bus lanes, but we can't do red light camera enforcement or speed camera enforcement. That's now used to be with the police, and that's recently transferred over to NZTA. So we support them with red light camera running in providing infrastructure. So we do have a couple of red light cameras where we provided the infrastructure, but then the police enforce it. So we do regularly get questions around speed cameras and so on, but unfortunately that's not something that we have authority to use. Sorry, Jacob.
That's all right. I was going to say, we're also starting to use cameras to enforce behaviours. Obviously, we do that in bus lanes, but also within the inner city and on a few other places. So this is outside of school, where we were getting lots of people parking in the cycle lane, as you can see fairly obviously there. And the teams, Kathy's team, are also looking at. You look like you're going to jump in.
No.
Yeah, jump in. They're looking to purchase vehicles that have cameras on them. So instead of you having to have a man out there walking and marking the vehicles and getting shouted at and abused and sometimes physically assaulted, we can just go round, pick up regos and send people tickets in the post. And they're real clever things. Apparently, they can look at where your
valve stem
is, to check whether people have moved and come back, so we can.
But the main driver behind that is actually safety of our staff. Our park enforcement team, unfortunately, cop a crazy amount of flack out on the street. I'd say on a daily basis they're verbally assaulted, and I wouldn't be surprised if it is weekly or fortnightly they're physically assaulted. It's the amount of abuse they get, and the levels of it can be quite extreme. We've had people chased, we've had people run into chased on a scooter, and then run into petrol stations, and the petrol stations go on lockdown for our staff safety. And that's, thankfully, nobody was physically hurt that time, but we have had quite a few occurrences where they are physically assaulted. So the more we can move the technology, the more we're removing our staff from those precarious situations. So that's our main driver. I'm sure when it goes live, if our ticket numbers go up, we may get accused that we're doing it for revenue. That's not our driver by any sense. Our driver is to keep people safe.
Maintenance, normally I'd hand over to Jed at this point, but obviously with Jed not being here, I'll do my best to cover what he said in other places. So every time you do a snaps in solve, it comes in to us as a hybris ticket. The average time to have fixed action is 1 hour. But that's not how long it takes to get somebody out on the ground. That's how long it takes for it to be issued to the people who are then going to solve that problem. But I mean, 10,000 potholes filled each year. They also look after, like it says up there, stormwater surface management, line markings, vegetation, and footpath maintenance. The big thing Jed often talks about in this bit is about the difference between operational spend and capital spend, which some of you all know and some of you may not know. So operational spend is those bits that don't extend an asset life. So that's pothole filling, that's cleaning, that's emptying bins, that's sweeping, all those kind of things. And capital spend is when you essentially make the asset have a longer asset life. So that's the resealing, that's the rehabs. Capital spend you can borrow against, so its effect on rates is relatively low. Operational spend comes straight from rates, so it's got an extremely high impact on rates. I think it's something like 40 times more sort of potent in terms of its impact on rate. But also it's what solves the problems for us. If we get potholes, we can fill a hole, but it's going to fall apart again, and we'll have to fill it again, and we'll have to fill it again. And the only way to really solve that problem properly is to come through and completely resurface the road properly as a capital spend. So that's what again, when we talk about we're trying to push more stuff through through reseals and rehabs, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get ahead of that so that the problem is solved at source, as opposed to sending out expensive people to go and fill in potholes here and there.
I'll give you a figure on that. Typically, over the last year, 69% of all our OPEX costs for transport have been in the maintenance space. So that's a huge sum of money, and obviously the impact on rates for that is significant as well. By the same token, if we don't fill potholes in or don't replace white lines or give way signs and so on, you end up with immediate safety risks on the network as well. And everyone loves a good pothole. So the money is spent, but then the other side is the more we put into capital, longer term, we would hope that the quality of our asset increases. So we need to do less reactive maintenance. That's what we're trying to do at the moment, just trying to play catch up.
And then the last one in this section is official inquiries. So Lagoimas, we had 563 of 2,250. So we got about a quarter of all the Lagoimas that council got came to transport. So it's more than 2 every working day, and makes us the #1 unit by quite some way. Elected member requests, we had 517, community board requests, 367. We also, like it says up there, formal reports through the transport unit. Where did I write this down? I added all those together. It's but in terms of things that we have to sign off, there's nearly 300 a year that come through me, Steve, and Kathy. It's a lot of reports.
Jeff gets away with it.
It gets away with most of them. There's a lot of reports we have to read and approve for them to come to you to make decisions and to give you information. So there's a lot of stuff that, essentially the whole point of this is to give you, again, a sense of the breadth and and complexity of stuff that we do and that we have to look after in our unit. And that's it. I'm going to stop for questions again at this point.
Okay, does anyone have any questions about what the transport team does?
Or doesn't do.
You asked for it. Yanni?
I'm interested in how robust or how we can have confidence in the advice around consenting, because I recognise we've got a huge workload and we've also had a huge number of resource consents, particularly for complicated, big developments. So I was just trying to understand, like, how much of your capacity is taken up with providing advice on traffic for consenting and land use development, and how can we have confidence that we've got sufficient assessment of the impacts? This just stems from a number of developments where we've picked up as a community the cost because of what would be, I guess, concern that sometimes we're told everything's fine and everything will be okay, and the development goes in and then it's completely mess.
So up in those areas.
Yeah, I was going to say we've got a few people who are dedicated to dealing with this stuff, including a sort of in-house modeller who looks at impacts. I mean, there's only so much we can do in terms of that. We can give advice to say we think this will have an impact in these ways, but that doesn't mean it gets accepted by the consents team as something that we can go and change.
And do you have a staff member whose responsibility it is to look at the resource consents after they've been issued and the development and monitor the impact as was said would happen versus what may have actually happened? Like, how do you ground truth the advice that we provide versus the reality post-development to see whether there needs to be changes to consent conditions or things that were said would be done as part of the consent get done?
I mean, we don't specifically.
I think, through the chair, I think that's a really good question, and I think it is an area we are probably weak in at the moment in terms of resourcing to do that post-implementation monitoring. It's not too dissimilar to when we build our own projects, and do we do enough monitoring and post-implementation reporting on them? Even if we put in a speed limit or build a new roundabout or some new signals, and we come to you as a board and tell you it's going to work like this, do we come back a year later and give you some actual facts on how it's performed? We are trying to do a lot more of that. And for the development stuff, it is an area we need to be doing a lot more of that, because it's lessons learned and everybody should be learning from them.
And final question from me is in terms of, so you have a footpath contractor that goes and does the work. Does someone from council quality check the work from the contractors before it gets accepted? So how can the community have confidence that the workmanship of the contractor, who's not council, is meeting certain standards?
Yeah. So through the chair, it's another good question. So we have contracts engineers who aren't part of the transport team. They're part of our professional services unit, and they're primarily, their main role really is to make sure what's built is in line with the contract and the terms and conditions of that contract, be it quality, time, money. So we do have people doing that, and again, like everything, do we do it well enough, or is it done to the right level? That's a different question. But we do have people who should be out there doing that type of stuff. They should be checking the quality and workmanship of work that's done, and if it's not done to the right standard, they need to be holding our contractors accountable for that.
I think where it gets more interesting is when you get people like Three Waters or Orion or developers who dig into our roads. And then obviously we don't have that contractual control. So there are still people within council and one of the pattern teams who go out and inspect that work. But obviously we don't have the same level of control for those bits of work. But yes, they are quality checked. Yeah.
So every job before it's signed off should be walked over and checked. And then it goes into a stage called practical completion. And defects, then you have basically a year of warranty on that asset, and at the end of that period, then there's a final check to make sure nothing's failed within that warranty period, and then it gets handed over to us as our new asset. so that there should be ample opportunity for things to get picked up. Whether it does or not, or whether things slip through, that's a different issue.
We had a lot of anger and Bromley around the condition of some of the resurfacing that was done, and so I was just trying to understand how if there's a gap and how we're doing something, or again, like that resource, and also people get really upset with the curb cut downs that are not like new development goes in, the driveways change, and they're just left with the old.
Yeah. So again, through the chair is an area we want to improve on. I think Councillor Donovan highlighted a new piece of a footpath that being resealed. Get the name of the street, Woodgrove Ave, and from my perspective, when I looked at it, I was quite surprised. So there's definitely areas that we need to be improving.
Me and then Kim, and then Kelly.
I think nice to meet the three of you, and it's good we have such a wide presentation today, but I just want to, so it seems like quite a lot of tickets issued. Would be nice to see how much that equated to money wise, but why
that number.
Oh yeah, because I was thinking, gosh, how much there.
Total infringement value is about $6.77 million.
Oh, okay, and then that leads on to my actual question was, does that money then go directly back into transport or to the wider city council services?
I mean, it just goes back into the general revenue pot, I think. But but then you've also got on the flip side, I don't know how many people are in that team. There must be 20, 25 people in that team. So they obviously have a cost as well. So it's not woo free money.
No, because I was just thinking if that money could be utilised to go towards those upgrades, if it's make this network safer, kind of.
So through the chair, we have a number of revenue streams in transport. Parking does generate an amount of revenue. I couldn't tell you the exact figure off the top of my head, but it's definitely positive. So they make council an amount of money. We've got various other revenue streams. We've got one which is advertising on bus shelters. For that, this year, I think we've generated nearly $1 million. Next year, that's going to increase to 2, and I think it goes up to, correct me if I'm wrong, Patty, nearly 3 million a year, maybe.
Off the top of your head, sorry.
So don't quote those figures, but it's definitely in the low millions, and that's revenue coming into council, and overall, all revenue. It tries to balance the books, which then has a big impact on rates. So the more we can bring in, the lower the impact on rates.
One of our biggest revenue streams is from NZTA. I'm told, I've never gone and checked the numbers, but I'm told it's the second biggest revenue source for council after rates. They fund about a third of our operations. So sometimes we do things that people here might think of chip sealing asphalt roads and in sort of newish subdivisions that make people mad. But that's because we're sort of trying to make sure we can keep that funding source from NZTA and follow their rules. So we're in a bit of an odd situation compared to most other units, and we've almost got two paymasters, as it were.
So by following NZTA rules, which is, I think chip sealing is always the interesting one. Everyone loves a nice asphalt road. NZTA we have levels of service that are monitored by NZTA, and that's around the overall condition of the road. One of the easiest ways to keep the road in good condition is to apply a nice new chip seal. Lots of residents don't like that, and we understand. And we can do either option. But if you do chip seal, you can do probably 5 times the amount you would
something like that,
of asphalt. But we'd also get subsidy from NZTA. The 51% of our cost of that chip seal would be paid for by NZTA. We chose to do asphalt, we'll be able to do 1/5 of it with no subsidy from NZTA. So that's one of our big drivers. Yeah. So it's not just because it's not just because we don't love chip seal, but we try to do the most we can across the network for the best bang for buck.
Neither does Greg.
Yes, that sounds more like it's 2 to 1. They're paying for half of it.
Yeah. Right, Kim and then Kelly.
Thanks very much. Just on what following on from Jan was talking about the renewals and the quality and accountability side of things. I'm just wondering about when, for example, roads are renewed or footpaths, for example, and Marine Parade, and I have asked this question through the report before, but just the accountability for contractors, like we had a part of the road where it was resealed down Marine Parade, which was good. But then we had a couple of parts by Thompson Park that weren't. But my question is for, when it comes to the contractors and they start a project, there was always, those two patches of the road weren't intended to be resealed. Okay, that's fine. But my question is then, this standard and the quality of the road prior and post works was worse. And I'm just wondering, you know, the accountability of contractors, that we start with a level of road maintenance which is acceptable, but by the end of the project, that road that hasn't been done, part of the road is worse off than it was in the first place. There's some, you know, accountability there.
Yeah, so through the chair, there is, contractors will be measured on the performance, and they should be building stuff to specification. The difficulty is if you, and I don't know the particular job in that you're referring to, but you could take even a really old chip seal road, and it feels quite smooth to the average driver. You drive on it, there's not loose chip everywhere. It's relatively smooth. You go and apply a new chip seal to it, and all of a sudden it feels horrible because you've got stones everywhere. It's a bit bumpier, but from an overall asset point of view, the asset's now waterproof. It's not going to get worse. What we're doing when we resurface roads is we're trying to look after what's underneath that, and not end up getting to the point where we need to do a road renewal job. Because to renew the whole road, if it fails underneath, you have to excavate, you know, a substantial portion of the road out, and the cost goes astronomical.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time, resurfacing, whether it's asphalt or chip seal, is mostly a waterproof and grip layer that's to provide grip for your tyres, and it's to stop water penetrating further down, and then that then protects the overall asset. But we do find that when people are used to a road that's been smooth for quite a long time, like visually smooth even, and you go and apply chip seal, and each piece of chip is, you know, 10 to 12, even 15 mil high, and they get embedded in, it suddenly feels loud. It's louder. You get more noise from it. You get little chips flying away everywhere. So what I'm trying to say is, it's not necessarily that the contractors have done it wrong. It's just that it's a change in what people are used to. And if they have done it wrong, by all means, we will get onto them. And what often one of the common complaints is loose chip. And quite often, if they have re-chipped the road, we will send and we get complaints, we'll send the contractors back out there to re-sweep the roads.
Thank you. Sorry, I may not have made myself very clear. It was actually, there's about a 1 kilometre stretch where the road wasn't done at all.
Okay.
And the condition of it now is worse than it was because of all the works of machinery and stuff. Yeah. So I'm just wondering about the accountability for that.
So what I'd say for that is, if they've damaged the road, all that's going to do is push that bit of road higher up in our priority to get redone. We can't really hold them accountable for using the road legally, and we have this issue all the time, particularly on Banks Peninsula and more recently near McLean's Island, where roads have been hammered through heavy vehicles, say through forestry trucks or quarrying, and illegally those vehicles are allowed to use that road, but because they're not used to, they don't regularly use it, and all of a sudden now they are, the road's just suddenly deteriorated. So we can't really do much about them using the road while they're building. If they're like working on the road and they damage it directly, not just by driving over, that's different. We would, our asset protection team would get on top for that. If it's just that we've suddenly seen an increase in heavy vehicles using that road while they work on it, there's not much we can do about that, unfortunately.
Thank you. That explains it.
Again, yeah, the problem we can get around developments as well.
People just have to drive over a little bit more to raise it up higher on the road. Thank you. The other question I had with regards to the dish gutters, and we've been talking about those a little bit. So when is the focus, when it comes to the criteria and prioritising dish gutters and footpaths in relation to roads, I know they're two separate things, but is it just the condition of the dish gutters that are taken into consideration? Because I'm just thinking about the assets and the community that are on those roads and streets. For example, one of our community board plan priorities is Rafferty School down Leeward Terrace. So is it, the dish gutters are terrible and safety and health safety issue for the school. Is the traffic and the amount of students and foot traffic and vehicles taken into consideration when it's prioritised to be done? Or is it just mainly the condition of the gutter?
think it's just,
Just the asset quality.
yeah, it's just the asset quality for that, yeah.
With this, so this, in this proposed annual or long-term plan, sorry, not annual plan, in the long-term plan we're developing, we are looking to put a bit more money into curb and channel replacements. So there's a separate line item for that. The problem is it's rare that we would go and replace just a dish channel on its own, because the dish channel is it's a part of the surface water system. It's basically the same as having a pipe underground, because it stores an amount of water. So, and because it's lower, you can't just fill it in without then creating other problems. If you were to fill it in and need to replace it, you'd have to almost design and install a whole new drainage network, which then adds significant cost. That's why historically we've only ever really got rid of deep dish channel when we've done a whole new road reconstruction. But we are looking at options at the moment, because we are aware of the sentiment around dish channels. But the other side, and also that a lot of them are in really poor condition, and they're in such poor condition that if we don't do something with them, they're actually going to damage the wider road anyway, because water's going to get in underneath. So we are looking at a couple of options at the moment in terms of, can we repair economically what's there, or in some options we might even replace the dish channel, but at the same time that doesn't address all the safety issues, because they are deep and people would step into them. Getting out of a car next to the dish channel is never pleasant either. So that doesn't solve that issue, but it solves the maintenance issue. And then there's different types of curb which have inbuilt drainage channels inside them. And basically it looks like a solid block of a curb, but it's hollow inside. So with holes on the outside, the water can get inside the curb. So it performs the same function, but without the big step and drop off. So we are looking at options to how we address deep dish, because unless we suddenly put hundreds of millions of dollars into road renewals, we're going to have this problem for a long time to come. So we need to try and find some workarounds in the meantime.
Thank you. It would be, thank you for explaining that. It would be really beneficial, I think, to the community if, in this particular instance, that the movements of like 2,000 people per day, 5 days a week when school's in, is taken into consideration, because it sort of changes the dynamics, not just any street with just the odd person walking on footpath. It's quite significant. So that'd be great. The other thing I have too, with when you hear the street cleaner coming along in the morning and it's steam things a week, which is great. My mother used to do that 30 years ago on hot water. Just wondering what else is done, because there seems to be a lot of debris and a lot of rubbish that's always just left in the gutters. Who is responsible for getting rid of that?
Was this a deep dish?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, the deep dish.
Oh, yeah.
So
Thank you.
through the chair, that is our maintenance team.
Yeah.
So if there are issues, I'd recommend you logging a ticket or snap send solve, and if it doesn't get resolved, come through you.
It's not a regular thing, will it, at the same time, the steam cleaner, or there is another machine that comes and cleans gutters?
There's certain times through the year where we do go out and target that type of cleaning, particularly leaf fall season. But yeah, from some of the ones I've witnessed, there's lots of debris in them and under them. But I wouldn't say I can't comment on how routine they clean the deep dish, or particularly under the worst bits of the driveway crossings.
Yes.
I can't comment on how often they do clean under there, but if you're aware of any issues, please let us know, and we'll make sure they do get cleaned.
Snaps and solve get stuff solved pretty quickly. I mean, we do things because they don't even come through us; they go straight to the contractor usually, and so they just get dealt with in days.
That's very good, thank you.
Yeah.
One quick question. It's also just a little bit example, seeing it as an example of what I had. On the corner of Lever and Tonk Street, there's a giveaway sign, stop sign, and there's a berm with a big plant in it. Now you can't see to the right when you stop there. But one day there was a council person there with his truck and all his gear, and so I stopped and had a wee chat. I said, do you think he was clearing that plot underneath? I said, do you think you could just give that a trim, please, because you can't actually see? But he wasn't able to do that. So my question is that sort of cooperation, coordination. I had to do a snap and solve. So just, is there some improvements on that? Just, just that Johnny on the spot, let's fix this problem.
Maintenance control, isn't it? So difficult. Yeah.
Do you know what that person was doing?
To come back to you, Jackie,
The snuff around the.
to come back to you.
At the bottom.
Yeah.
But he had the, it was on the back of his truck and stuff and gear. So I thought, well, it made sense just to whip that one branch off.
Yeah, so again, if you send that one in to us through your board advisor, and we'll have a look into that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, so we've got Kelly and then Celeste and then Jackie.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Always appreciate the work that you do, just pretty trying, everybody's got an opinion on transport, parking, et cetera, et cetera. I just wanted to ask about Waitai Road, which has recently been done pretty much most of the length of. A number of people who have recently built houses on Waitai Road have asked for parking. So what they have on their side of the road is a 2.5, 3 metre wide shared path with it's got cycles imprinted on it. Then yellow line, and then the carriageway, the main carriageway. It is quite a wide road, but I'm not sure how appropriate it would be to actually put car parking outside the houses on the north side. There's hardly any houses on the southern side. Yeah, I just wondered what the process would be. Would they come to community board? The people, so I'm waiting till every house is occupied there, and have told people, look, if it's possible, we'll wait till it's critical mass, and then they could come to community board. But I just want to make sure that that's even possible.
Through the chair, the quick, easy way to have a look, see if there's enough space there would be to put an action in through your board advisor. Then one of Kathy's engineers could go out and have a look, and we could come back so not asking for a decision, but we could come back to some quick, easy advice to say actually the road's wide enough, or it isn't, or this is our view on why it should or shouldn't be catered for. And then once you've got that advice, if you wanted to create an action and to take it through the board, that'd be up to you, councillor.
Thank you. The other question was the Waitai-Burwood lights. Do you have an idea of exactly when that might be looking to start?
No. My understanding is that Three Waters is still in there. I haven't been up there for a long while, but my understanding is that Three Waters is still in there. So once we've got a clear idea of when they'll finish, but we're setting ourselves up for procurement at the moment. It's all designed, it's ready to go.
Oh, good.
So once they're out of the way, we'll get a contractor and then we'll start work on it.
The businesses will probably appreciate it being delayed somewhat, as they are really suffering. The bike shops closed down. You know, they're not destroyed, but they've been doing really hard. So they must have gone on holiday for a few weeks till it's finished. And the ladies at the dairy had to go at me every time. Okay. And the last thing was, Steve, we were talking about 6 Winter Ave. How soon do you think that payment will be sorted? I know we talked about it just before.
So through the chair, I'm not too sure. I'll have to speak to our finance team to find out how the payment side of it would work. But what would help if I emailed something, if I haven't done already, through yourself, councillor, to say that we will take on this cost and we will basically pay back the owner for the.
You want me to send you an email?
Yeah, and then I can confirm back to you. Then at least you then have it on record from myself, and then I can let the finance team work through the logistics of how that works.
Yeah,
it's not something I know about.
Yeah, no, I get it. Thanks, appreciate it.
Jackie and then Celeste and then I think Greg and then Kim will say.
Just quickly, follow on from Kim, saying that the planting needed to be cut down. Now, I'm only 4 foot tall, and there are 10 intersections that I can think of that I avoid because of the planting, and it's mostly grasses. So how do you know when to go out and trim them? Because I just, Broome Street, a Power Road intersection is one. I never do a left turn on a Power Road into Broome Street because of the planting. I can't see.
Have you considered riding a penny farthing?
I have a scooter, and in actual fact, I'm higher up on the scooter, but I can't be the only person that's having difficulty with this. I'm not the only person under 5 foot in Christchurch driving around in the car. So we just think about the height of the plantings on those, trying to turn. Yeah, I'm just putting that out.
No.
And I'll give a penny farthing, I'm 70,
I would encourage you though to use SnapSense software there because it is, I think our maintenance, our landscape, sorry. Yeah, I think there's work to do in that area, but it's helpful if people.
Yeah, it is mostly the grasses.
Yeah.
And so it's like a place of grass and it's that's so
It's also
good.
road alignment. I've been rear ended twice there. So.
Yeah,
Yeah, because that's the worst one because you've also got to turn back, but it's not the only one.
that does remind me of, so a while ago now, where, when you come out of, when you're tuning across Linwood at Hardwood Street and Keeley's
It
out,
almost killed him.
there, I wasn't thinking that, there was, but for quite a while, there were signs that people had illegally put on it that were actually making it hard to turn over. And I contacted staff, it might have even been years ago, but there was a very understanding staff member who had said, contacted the people to try and find out. It took weeks and weeks to get rid of this dangerous sign. And I guess I would hope that public safety was more rather than people's signs. And I mean, I appreciate trying to get hold of them. I reckon give them 3 days, and if they don't remove them, then they should be removed. I don't know what the rule is, but I think it should be more serious than that.
Yeah, it's illegal. I shouldn't say that.
Literally, I get out of my car and remove the sign.
And just to add to that, I've repeatedly logged gaps and solves on the signs that have been put up on the pedestrian crossings, where kids cross the road and our compliance team don't care. Literally do not care. We've had a huge proliferation of these events.
Don't know if we can speak to what's in their hearts, but there hasn't been any actions taken.
I've been sending them emails raising this concern for over 3 years, and the signs are still there going up every time there's an event. But we've had kids killed on that, at that Linwood thing.
Where is that?
So where the pedestrian crossings are across the cycleway, they put the signs on those little yellow things that come.
Oh, yeah.
So they block the visibility of the motorist.
So, I mean, that's good to hear, councillor, that there are these issues because, yes, there's a compliance team, but certain signs, if they're in the road network, they should, where council's a big beast, we should actually be dealing with some of them as well. And Mr. Chair, the example you stated, we do have processes in place where we give somebody an amount of time. I can't remember what the amount of time is off the top of my head, but basically once that amount of time's up, we can go and remove it from the road. It's only a short amount of time. It's not weeks. It's in the hours or days, probably 24 hours or something. So we do have that control if it is a safety hazard. The signs that Councillor Johansson raised around pedestrian crossing, that sort of concerns me a bit if we haven't been addressing them. That's something we'll speak to some of our transport teams about, because we do have cameras at most signalised intersections. And if the guys in that room who are managing those cameras can see signs being put up, there needs to be letting somebody else know that we need to go and get rid of them.
Cool. So that was, did you have anything else, Jackie?
No.
Jackie? Okay. Celeste and then Greg and then Kim.
Thank you. I think some of them have been covered, but I'm just trying to understand a bit more detail. In terms of the plan going forward, when we look at sequencing repairs or renewals, things like footpaths, for instance, is a good example. Will we start looking at Cuban Channel as part of that process? So we don't necessarily do a footpath ahead of a Cuban Channel that might be rated as poor or very poor?
To the chair, I think the simple answer is yes. We do need to look at how we sequence those type of works.
So
we've recently got a whole load of new data about Urban Channel. We didn't have sort of consistent data across the system, which we now do. So we're in a better place to do that.
Great. So I was looking at some of the ones that are scheduled. So you've got Collingwood Street and Edwards Road. I was having a look at Google Maps and they've got pretty mucky hidden channel, steep dish. So I'm really keen to get those streets improved, but I'm concerned that we might fall into another Woodgrove ad situation. Edwards Road, I'm not sure the condition of the Cuban Channel, but it'd just be good to get some advice back on those ones specifically. And Collingwood Street, I'm just worried that if we do resurfacing on that street, it'll push back work that needs to happen in the Cuban Channel, and then we get stuck in that loop.
Can you send us the list of streets that you can send out and we'll
I think
look at them?
there's not that many on the list, but I think it's just those two, but that's true. In terms of the plan going forward, is it possible to get I know we've got it on the website, I was looking through the different highlighted bits, which you can screenshot and look at, but is there actually a 3-year program that we can look at?
So the 3-year program is at the end of this presentation, which we split out by the different wards and the different types of treatment.
Yeah.
That will go onto our website. There's a whole connection between our RAM system and the public GIS system that we need to get sorted. But the plan is that will go on there, and then it'll be a public facing.
Is there is it possible to get in like a spreadsheet? Can you export it as a spreadsheet?
Yeah, we can get you a spreadsheet. Yeah, it's easy enough. We can do that.
That one.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think there might be. In terms of the cleaning out the gutters, is that when they come back and do that? So if someone's for a snap and salt, would they just clean the gutter? Would they clean the actual? I don't know if it's called a sump, but what's the bit in that gets the crap caught out of it?
So through the chair, they should, if they're going out to clean the gutter, they should be cleaning under the driveway blocks as well.
Okay,
They should be.
that's okay.
Before big weather events, there's often a big push from transport and Three Waters together to go out and clean out all the sumps and make sure there's nothing caught in them. Certainly where they know there's known flooding issues. So
are we checking? Because my understanding is
they
it doesn't happen very often. Because they do a lot of the gutter cleaning, so it superficially looks good, but actually getting in under the driveway, I don't think that's happening in a lot of places where we've got repeated issues. So Woodgrove is another example where, as far as I know, that hasn't been happening. So do we escalate those as an issue, or should we let the contractor know they need to get in and do it properly on streets that have had numerous reports?
So through the chair, I think the best thing to do there would be to just send it through put a ticket in and be specific in your ticket that these areas need cleaning. But what we will do behind the scenes as well is we will go and check unfortunately it's probably best for Jed, but we can check what's in our maintenance contracts and see what the specification says about what the contractor should be doing. And we can let you know that as well.
Just final one, because we don't have time, but when we start looking at the long-term plan, we talk about the renewals budget, and in terms of the Cuban Channel budget, I'm a bit concerned that the budget will be there, but we won't be able to access it because the roads themselves will be in okay condition. So those streets that might need to be prioritised won't fall in that gap again. Will we get more information about the road's okay, but the footpaths, the gutters failed, which is then going to undermine the road and footpath? How do we get them in the program? So
through the chair, I've tried to touch on earlier is we are looking at options about how to do that. And again, you could, if the majority of the road's got 20 years life left in it, you might need to take a metre strip out along the channel to put in a new curb. That might be a palatable solution, or it might not be. So we are looking at those options. It's we are doing a piece of technical work on that we will look to share once we've done it. And the outcome from that is again going to help us form our long-term plan and what we're doing where.
So the board would, I know you've got 280k.
Yeah.
So you can't do it pretty straight, but if we had a few that we're particularly interested in, you come back with this is what we think would work. It might not be an immediate repair, but it would be, this is what makes sense in this location, because the Cuban Channel stuff is quite a lot more complex than some of the other work.
So I think at the moment we won't really know the answer to that, councillor, until we've done the technical work. Once we've got the technical work, I think we're more than happy to share that with the boards and say, look, these are the options, these are the costs. And then once we've done that, we can then see how we apply that through our programmes. So once we've done that technical piece of work, we'll be in contact.
All right, and Greg and then Kim, and that Kim's will be the last question in this for this part.
When works are happening, is there a time frame given for the contracts to say this is the work that needs to be done, we want it done in this time frame, or is it just this is the work to be done, come back and tell us how long it's going to take?
Is it so? So we will estimate how long it will take to do the works. We then go out to tender. They send us a programme as part of that tender, and that gets agreed as part of the contract. If they're beyond that date, they'll either need to prove an extension of time under the contract, or there's penalties usually for being late.
So there are penalties involved when they're outside those contracted rates. Because it does seem like a lot of times, I mean, there's weekends that there's nothing happening, there's bucket loads of road cones everywhere and driveways and parking is blocked off, particularly around businesses like Kelly mentioned before. I know that's a Three Waters issue at the moment, but there's a lot of stuff that's just not happening for hours at a time, and that's what the businesses see in that period of time. And is it around business spaces that things are prioritised in that respect, or is it just a general one plan across the cityscape?
So through the chair, what I'd say there is you've highlighted a different issue there, and that's I'm trying to think of a polite word to say it, but the traffic management, if it's not needed, it shouldn't be used. And it bugs me personally when you know somebody's been digging up the road. Yes, you can see all the people working. They pack it up for the weekend, and all the cones are there, but the road can still be used. In that situation, they should move those cones. And we are.
I just want to pick up on that.
Yeah.
It's really good to know, because there are many instances around the city where the cones are just left up when there's not actually any work being done, because they're going to come back and do it.
Just caution that doesn't, where there's a road surface that's not finished, or where there's a speed limit in place, those type of things. So there might be a reason why there is still something there for safety reasons. So just, I just not just see what's being said, but there is a
clarify, because I think this is because you don't want to get a whole bunch of complaints from elected members about this. Sorry, Greg, just clarify, is that so there are, I mean, the most common one, and this might be falling into that camp, is where there is a speed limit, but there's no work, there's no surface issue, it's just that there had been a speed limit because there had been people working there. Should they have taken those speed limit signs down and taken the cones away? If there's no issue with
if the job's been complete and it's safe, they should absolutely remove the temporary speed limit. So what happens occasionally is the traffic management crew will be a different crew to the people doing the physical works. Physical works might finish at 4:30 on a Friday, and then the traffic management crew might, being a bit naughty here, the traffic management crew might not come around till a bit later. So situations like that shouldn't occur.
So if someone is doing work on a Friday, and they know they're going to come back and do the same work, it's not a surface issue. It's not actually a safety issue. They just got to do some work that, say it's on the curb or something. Should they remove the cones in that then?
So through the chair, in my view, absolutely. The difficulty is how can we force them to, and that's what we need to do and that's where our contracts and our specifications for how we employ our contractors to do the work. But from my point of view and from Kathy's side, from the traffic management and operations side, then if they're not using the space, it should be open to the public. And this is an issue we have all over the city, and it irritates, you can probably tell it irritates me as well. Anyway. Right. But we need to do better on that, and we need to look at better tools on how we can force contractors to not operate that way. Downside is that they'll say it costs you more than, and that's where Jacob's side on the sort of from the capital delivery side, that the contractors put in a tender, they put in a price to do a job, and from their point of view, they're going to do the least amount of traffic management setups as possible, because that's the cheapest way to win the work. If then from Kathy's side, from the traffic management side, come and say, guys, you're not working, remove your traffic management, they're going to say, well, it's going to cost you now. So we need to do a bit of work how we tie that up from a contractual point of view, but we absolutely want to see less cones out there if they're not needed. If they're needed, and sometimes it's not obvious, like Kathy was saying, it's not obvious that they're needed. There might still be a poor road surface, or might be a limit line missing or something, and having a temporary speed limit in over the weekend is the right thing to do. But a lot of the time, that's probably not the case. So it's something we're working on.
Right, so agree. Any more? Right, Kim?
Just a question on some specific roads on Marine Parade past Owen Road North. 16 years ago, public consultation had gone on the deep gutters and the footpaths. So it got to the stage where there was a design and plan and gone out for consultation. just at that moment we had the earthquakes. So this is 16 years ago. So I'm just also sort of bringing this to the attention because of that health and safety high usage area with children, elderly going to beaches, accessing that, having standing gutters with kids out of cars and stuff. So not just the condition of the gutters, but also the interaction between footpath and parked cars, and how elderly and people dropping elderly off literally have to park on a driveway so they can get out of the car safely, because they can't manage the dish cutter. So it's something to consider. There also was on the plan of where it, I actually happened to chat to the contractor that was physically walking the streets, the dish cutters, because she said that the vehicle that they usually have assessing the roads and the footpaths can't read dish cutters, so she was literally walking in Christchurch. So that was very informative. So just to consider the other thing too, the pier maintenance, that's it with you, pier?
Through the chair, no, it doesn't.
Okay, good question. Also, in new subdivisions, like for example, it's not new, but in the future and existing, Waimarie subdivision, there is a sculptural object that was put in right at the very beginning of the subdivision. The issue is around future maintenance of these, because the subdivision, the roads have been taken over by council, so there's a bit of a whoopsie around something. There's a hole here somewhere about who's supposed to be putting it back.
So through the chair, we are trying to address that on a citywide basis through our level of service review as part of the long-term plan. Problem is, there's a whole heap of these type of structures. They cost public money to maintain, but we've got no levels of service, which you could say is no mandate to spend money on repairing. So we're working, as we work through the long-term plan, we're going to be looking at whether we should have levels of service around that. Because from a staff point of view, it's really awkward. We have budgets on what we need to maintain. Somebody goes and crashes into one of those structures. If we can claim money back through insurance, we do progress those or pursue them. But if we can't, we then get feedback from the community that they expect it to be repaired. But we don't necessarily have budget set aside to repair those type of structures. So we will repair them, but then that means we have budget pressures for all the other stuff that we should be doing, like, and for that type of structure, it's normally the burn mowing type budgets that would be used. So we are looking to try and set up some specific levels of service around those types of structures. It's a huge issue. Longer term, we should also be looking at our consents team and our transport planners, when these developments are proposed, should they be putting that sort of stuff that's going to be one day public road reserve? If they want to have a nice big fancy name to their subdivision, cool, but put it in private property, then it doesn't become our asset to maintain.
This particular example, there is somebody in governance working with someone in transport to resolve it.
So I think just through the chair, who would have been here is aware of that one, and I believe the young fellow that did crash at a high speed into that is paying something like $5 a week, or might even be less than that. But obviously, it's quite a bit more than that. So
the whole thing about subdivisions, and NZTA have given us quite a bit of criticism, not just for these kind of structures, but equally every developer wants their subdivision to look interesting, and so every single one has got different street lights, every single one's got different bin types, every single one's got different road sign types, and they want everything standardised because that's how you get the cheapest product. So there are discussions going on with them as well about what they'll fund and what they expect us to be demanding of subdivisions.
All right. Well, no, we're going to move on to the next section now.
Okay. Cool. Still works. How do people use our network? So people drive 3.1 billion kilometres on our network each year, which is more than a trip to Saturn and back, which is quite a lot. In terms of cycles, we've seen it go up. There you can see by over 40%. I had a look at this graph again earlier on today, and that spike at the end is even higher. That I'm sure there's things beyond just building infrastructure that are causing that spike in the last sort of 3 or 4 months. But yeah, it's quite a steep jump that we've seen in the past 3 or 4 months. What we've seen overall is that most of the growth has been on the MCR route. So we have counters all over the city. Some of them are on normal roads, and some of them are on the major cycleways. The major, the ones that are not on the major cycleways, they're roughly where they were when we started in 2016, and it's the ones on the MCRs that have driven that huge growth in cycle use. So it suggests that the infrastructure, it does encourage a lot of people to come out and use cycleways. Bus patronage, you can see this drop obviously during COVID, but it's gone back up. ECAN are now telling us that they're having to leave people behind on some of the routes, particularly Route 7, where there are all the new bus lanes. So we're now looking in the next LTP to start putting in more bus lanes as part of our PT Futures programme, which will start with routes 1 and 5, which come out to here, obviously. Route 5 does. So yeah, there's going to be a big focus on PT in the next LTP is our proposal. The double-decker bus, I got asked by a few people how they can go on that double-decker bus, how they know where it is. And after a bit of work, we managed to find a link which I've put down at the bottom there. And so if you click on that and type in that vehicle ID, it'll tell you exactly where that bus is at any time. So if you fancy a cheap day out with the kids, you can go and press your face up against the front of the double-decker bus. It's like growing up in the UK.
But no, what part of the UK he came from?
Come on. Writing rude words. So the last LTP, these are our strategic priorities. I'm not going to read all of this, but the big focus was access, safety and environment. And it meant there were lots of things that didn't really fit into that category, particularly things like the master plan type work didn't really fit in any of these categories. But obviously there's a big demand from community boards and the communities for those kind of regeneration type projects. So I'll quickly go through access, safety, environment. So access, this graph here is smooth travel exposure. So effectively it looks at how smooth the roads are and then sort of does a calculation with how well they're used. So obviously sort of Main North Road would get a higher rating than would Grove Ave. So it tries to take a sort of come up with a kind of average smoothness for a journey. You can see we dropped below, and so when we're talking about that needing to catch up, that's why, because we're below on roughness, we're just about below on STE, we're sort of trending back up. Resealing, we've done a lot more this year. There it says the target is 4%. I did these a few months ago. So last year, what it says current year, 5.7. We were actually just above 6% in the end. So we're well above the target and we're starting to catch up. Environment, this is tracks where the properties have following those services within a 1 kilometre walk. It's quite an interesting one, I think. There's weird pockets of red where you wouldn't expect them. There's sort of a lot of it. The sort of Sydenham is bright green, Linwood's bright green. You'd expect those. The red just north of Hagley Park, I always think, is a really weird, interesting place to have a bright red. Almost no services within a kilometre, and a few others. And you can see that South Shore is obviously red because it's sort of at the end of a little peninsula of its own. And then safety. DSIs are death and serious injuries. We've seen a reduction of about 3.5 DSIs per year over the past 15 years, which is a great result. Really, really good. I mean, obviously every DSI is a tragedy, but it's trending in the right direction. When I first started looking at this, I thought, well, maybe it's just the cars have got better. I mean, my car, if I try and drive at someone, it slams the brakes on and won't let me get them. But actually, New Zealand as a whole has sort of roughly level, slightly increased. So something we're doing in the city is making a difference to that chart. So that's really good news, and I'm really pleased to see that. And then the new transport strategy that was agreed about a year ago has these 6 goals. Obviously, well-managed transport assets, that's what we're really trying to focus on. A more resilient transport network, a safer transport network, a more efficient transport network, genuine transport choices, and a vibrant, healthy and livable city. And this gives us a more rounded set of goals, I think. And so, like I said, those kind of projects that the community really likes but didn't really fit nicely in a box for us before, I think they start to have a more chance of getting through the sifting process in the next LTP. Key project, you can see there, Pages Road Bridge. We'll be pleased to see that's there as a key project for us in the next LTP. I was going to stop it for questions, but I think I was never intending to talk individually to these last ones. So I think if I do this last slide and then we'll just take questions from there, if that's all right. So this chart always annoys Jed and anybody in the maintenance team, but I just think it's quite a nice little simple chart that tells you what those different things are. So resurfacing is just dealing with that bound surface on the top. So it's either overlay it or scrape a little bit off and put a new thing on it. And like Steve said before, what it does, it effectively waterproofs and extends the life of the road by stopping water getting in underneath. Rehabs or rehabilitation is when you dig down into the structure underneath the seal. So you'll start to take the top off, dig it down, rebuild it from the ground up essentially, and that gives you more of that strength. And then you get street renewals, which are where the footpath, the curb, and the road are all at end of life, and so you then get that opportunity to completely change the nature of the road. And so Wine and Hulbert is a brilliant example for you. That the assets are stuff from sort of boundary to boundary, and so you then get the opportunity to reshape what that street looks like. It's not just about like for like. It's about doing something different and having the opportunity to do something different. Sounds like you're going to say something, Steve. No. And then after that, ward by ward, we've got these pictures that show where we're planning to be resurfacing, rehabs, and footpaths in the next 3 years.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll go straight into this.
Yeah.
And so that we can, and maybe we'll do ward by ward, rather, and so that we can, because people, and I don't want to go members go over anything that we've already been over. But if there's anything specific that you haven't raised already about ward, and we'll try. We've got about 15 minutes, and so we don't want to go over everything that might be interesting or we might be concerned about in our wards. But now is the time to ask questions you might not be able to. But first is coastal. Unless there's any general questions, does there anybody have any?
It's general, but also coastal.
Yeah.
One of the things that we hear quite a lot as elected members that, we kind of understand the reasoning why, but members of the public don't. It's kind of how we align with other works. They see their road being put up, they don't understand that it's a drain or it's power or it's resealing or resurfacing. And I thought what would be really helpful for elected members is actually a page on CCC that it explains kind of how we try and link in the different works so that members of the public, because we've all had comments going, what a waste of money, just only ripping it up again. Yeah. But people don't actually understand how we try and connect works, but also so that, and then also maybe some more information on kind of the cost differences between asphalt and chip seal and stuff like that, because maybe like a frequently asked questions or something like that page on the website where we can actually easily refer constituents to, because it's something we get quite a lot and it's very hard to explain over and over again.
So through the chair, we do have some of that information online already, but it does need a good refresh and an update. So we've already tasked the team with doing that. So hopefully you will see some improvements in that space, because I'm sure it frustrates you, but believe me, we get the less that comes into us to deal with from that point of view, the better as well. So we like to use that website as somewhere to direct people to as well.
Are you able to, once it's done, to send you or someone just give us like the link or something, so then we can share it?
Certainly.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry, it's called Working on Our Roads, one that you can look at, which gives it's possibly not exactly what you want, but it might be a start.
Thank you.
I will say that quite often there's lots of work done on the roads that aren't council. Yes. And obviously people come to us because it's people digging up the road, and so we're the first port of call. But Orion work on roads, developers work on roads, Kinetics work on roads, Three Waters team work on roads, and we do our very best to link those together. But I mean, it's very difficult for us to get.
Even like that somewhere.
Yeah.
So what we'll do now is coastal members, if there's anything that is on this that you haven't already raised, that is on this map that you want to ask questions about?
I've already mentioned.
You've already mentioned
I've
it?
already mentioned some, I mentioned the roads that we have, Lisa's mentioned some too, which is great. Whether this fits into it, we had a presentation the other day and it was talking about the Eastern Orbiter cycleway thing for outside of town.
Yeah.
The transport has budget there, the parks have budget there, but there could be potentially a really good solution if they're able to come together and do a collaborative approach, as apparently they've done in Hiku Park, and that's through Rafferty Domain, to upgrade some shared paths and there for the school kids to come to school. So I'm just wondering whether that can be worked on, you know, as a moving forward potentially to, you know, really come together as two teams and make the best out of it. Also, part of that is that there wasn't any data to follow the Eastern Orbiter. There was no cycling data for us to sort of base anything on. So just wondering on the east is, you know, is there going to be some sort of data provided so that we can make better informed decisions of what's actually out there?
I'll put this. So a lot of the road usage data comes from a mixture of counting and modelling. So it gives us a pretty good idea of where we see cars. We don't have the same coverage for cycling. That's the problem. So we have spot counters that count constantly, but we don't go out so much and put out counters. So we just don't have as much understanding of where lots of cyclists are. And it's the same with pedestrians, which going back to your point about why don't we prioritise this bit of footpath because it's outside of school, we just don't really have that sort of data, which makes it a bit, okay, it's not impossible, but it just makes it a bit more difficult to say this is the route that we'd expect people to use. You can get Strava data, but Strava data tends to pick up middle-aged men in lycra as opposed to kids on bikes, which is really the people that you're looking to protect.
So I think last time in a community ball cleaning or roading or something, I mentioned about an alternative to roading that might be a bit more costly. I'm not sure the name of it. It was EnviroSeal or something. It was a more environmentally friendly road surfacing that somewhere up north we're actually looking into. Just wondered whether, I think it's in our board plan, the actual name of it, but I was just wondering if we've got chip seal and it's not the road carpet. Just wondering if there's proactively looking at something else.
I think we're always looking at alternative ways of doing things and better ways of doing things. I don't know that product specifically. It sounds very similar to a number of other rejuvenation surfaces that we've used in the past. But I can, if you log that through, Cindy, we can get Jed to come back to you with some more details around that.
So I'm going to get Jackie and then I'm just going to ask if we can go just have a look at the slides, the following slides, so that people can note down questions, because otherwise we might run out of time. Jackie?
Just quickly, because you do have Bromley just on that second one there, and you can see you're doing the stretch of St John Street between Maces Road. So, okay, it's put out to 2930, but it's the section of St John Street between Maces Road and Linwood Ave. Now, my understanding is that is a residential street, and we have been campaigning for a very long time to get traffic at the intersection between Dyers Road and Maces Road. Now, the trucks that are going down that strip of St John Street would be doing considerable damage to it, would it not?
And they're also not supposed to be.
And they're not supposed to be, but they're not. And they're going to continue to go down there until you get lights at that intersection. So what is Transport doing about forwarding that? Because we've done pretty much everything we can.
I mean, I have spoken to NZTA about that intersection. My understanding is that they are aware of the problem. It sits on a priority list, but unfortunately so do lots and lots of other things.
Count the trucks that go down St John Street, because it is costing council money to not have those traffic lights there.
That would be good.
So the staff said at the Bromley barbecue that we had that they do have new technology now, like cameras that use AI to kind of determine what traffic movements are?
Well, we need to see, so that we can actually, present, NZA and ZTA are going to keep saying to us that they're not, the intersection doesn't get enough use. And the trucks are going to continue going down St John Street and down Bromley Road and out through Keeley's Road until those lights are there. And it's incredibly frustrating because they're saying, oh, there's no traffic. Well, we know where the traffic is, so we should be counting it and telling them.
Yeah, so through the chair, you'd absolutely get no argument from us as staff at CCC. We would fully support signalising that intersection.
I'll be terribly Wickham, I think, would be my preference of the two, but yeah, but one or other, yes.
A set of signals along Dyes Road there would be highly beneficial to that whole area. And that's
Wickham would be fine.
Yeah,
All right.
So what I'll ask you to do is just to give us, show us the different pages so that members can note down anything they want to note, and then I'll take questions. So first, coastal carriageway resurfacing.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one is rehabilitation.
Yeah.
Is everybody, coastal members, give me a look. Yeah. Running for it. Next one. Coastal pathway resurfacing. Go. Burwood carriageway resurfacing. See.
Sorry, was there a renewal?
That's resurfacing.
It's resurfacing.
That's rehabs. We haven't got the renewals. I can send that list.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Got, and then Linwood.
That's footpath.
Oh, that's footpath resurfacing.
Oh, that's Linwood. Oh, I missed it.
Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, I'm sure it was an hour. There we go. I was thinking.
There we go.
I thought I had 9. Okay.
That's a lot of, that's a lot of carriageway resurfacing.
Yeah.
Blimey, yeah, these paying off.
Rehab. All right, now, Yanni. And then Greg. Huh? No, we
don't know.
Yes, okay, I'll just be really quick. Just one thing that came up today, and sorry, it does relate a little bit to the previous thing, but the start work notices and like Linwood Ave, we've got a start work notice for work happening with road corridor. It's not a road project, it's a waste water project. We've got a link to go to where the works are happening, so you click on the link. There's nothing showing there, there's no start work notice on the website. And the start work notice said it was going to be finished by the end of June, but we've not received any other start work notice that I can find. But the work is still going on at huge disruption to the local business. It was raised at before in the Polonara this morning. So I just wanted to pass on that I think there's a bit of a gap in our systems around projects being delayed and then updating the website, updating stakeholders, updating the different members. So I just thought I'd pass that. Take the constitute here, but
thank you.
But for me, the question around Linwood was just on, like, if I look at Wine Street, unfortunately, we spent money doing resurfacing ahead of the reconstruction. If you look at those North Linwood streets, and there's a number that are on that map. So I don't know if you can go to the roading. Yeah, this one. So if you see these ones here, this is Linwood Ave, but these two, which probably need reconstruction. And I'm worried that we're going to have the same problem that we had on Wine Street, where you're going to resurface it, but actually the road condition is not going to improve. It's just going to get worse. There's all sorts of groundwater issues, drainage issues. I was walking out there the other day when new subdivision and dense housing's gone in, and the grass berm is so squishy. It just feels like water's just everywhere. So
yeah, it hasn't exactly been a wet winter.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, like, is there a way? And I guess that's why I was asking the question around the Curvin Channel budget. So it seems sensible to me, if you're doing Wine Street, why don't you just do the North Linwood like you've done with Richmond in the past? Do a package of work for the Curvin Channel reconstruction for that area, so that you can get the synergy of combining it together rather than having all this individual project by project. So the question is really, do we know is there a way that we can see what the condition is in terms of qualifying for reconstruction versus resurfacing, so we can have, I guess, confidence that we're doing the right thing rather than just throwing good money after bad. And the second thing is, how could we actually look at getting areas done as a package, like we've done with some of the projects, get cost savings and synergy.
So I think through the chair, councillor, your first question, we can go away and look at that and speak to the team who developed the programme and just ask the question to confirm, is that the right treatment? A lot of it comes out of data, but there is a certain amount of validation as well. So we can go away and just confirm that and come back to you either way. In terms of trying to package works together, we do try and do that as much as we can. And we have regular programme meetings with the Three Waters team to make sure our programmes do align. Even if it means we lose a couple of years off our asset life, if they're going in to do a big water pipe, we might as well redo the road at the same time. So we are trying to do that more and more.
Greg and then Celeste and then Alex will probably be the last.
No, that's
No.
not.
All right, Greg and then Celeste.
Thanks. Is it on purpose? It's a great thing, by the way. That the main travel routes through the build area have been looked at through this plan, because we get a lot of people that say, hey, after the earthquakes, our roads are rubbish, do something about our roads. And the main ones that people transit on the most of the time seem to be in the sort of 3 to 4 year plan.
I mean, one of the drivers for things being prioritised is the number of people that use those roads and the function of those roads. So if they're used by a lot of heavy vehicles and they're used by a lot of people, then they will drift up compared to a similar condition road that's got less people in it.
I suppose the one that does seem to be missing slightly is only one little piece. So just recently, that New Brighton Road, Bassett Street, Avondale, with the bridges, there's a roundabout there, and they did some works, pipe works there recently. It's a very piecemeal roundabout, which obviously New Brighton Road takes a lot of traffic down. That's one thing that is missing from that list of works, is resurfacing on that roundabout.
I have often thought that going through the intersection, that the roundabout looks like a quiet suburban roundabout rather than a busy road roundabout.
Yeah, it's usually very busy, but it is one of those ones that it's a real patchwork quilt of pieces as you go past. Whether that can be something that's investigated, that'd be appreciated. And then likewise down Avondale Road, where the red zone is on the west of the road, there's the old roads that go through there. And with pretty much any rainfall in winter, there's great big puddles, and the kids that are biking and walking to school down there as they go through that. The first couple of streets up towards the river, they've had a curb put across there, so the water doesn't seem to pool. It's almost like there's a speed bump or a higher section of that. Is there any way to investigate having that done further along at the other spaces as well?
Are you asking for speed bumps?
So the red zone, yeah, effectively.
So I think through the chair, that'd be something we'd have to come back and give you advice on. So we'll advise it. Notes those down, we'll come back to you.
Yeah, cool.
All right, and Celeste, and that'll take us to the end unless there's anything that.
In terms of the stuff that's sort of been sitting there and linked to the paved road stuff, the ancillary works, some of the projects in there, like the Collingwood Street, I was told that it was being done as part of the Pages Road project, but it seems to now be falling within another program, which is more of a resurfacing program. So just concerned that streets that probably need a full renewal are getting resurfaced, which will extend their life, but it isn't really fixing the fact that they're totally bunted.
That's Collingwood. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Right. So the original Pages Road project, we scoped that so that it fitted the bits that NZTA were funding. I think there's one of the proposed programmes in the next LTP is to have a ancillaries project which will have those renewals in.
So Collingwood Street though, I thought that was part of, because I was told nothing's going to happen because it's going to get a renewal, and now it's down for resurfacing, which is normally I celebrate any upgrade, but I'm concerned that the Cuban channel there is buggered and it doesn't drain properly and it's actually slumped. So and I think back in the craft days, that road was identified as one of the very bad ones. So just trying to figure out in terms of like where things sit, so we're not jumping the gun on things that would need a proper upgrade, because another street might benefit from a bit of waterproofing, but that one actually needs a proper upgrade.
Through chair, it's a good suggestion, but we will look at that and come back to you.
Yeah.
There's no point resurfacing it if we're going to do other capital works in a year or two's time.
But having
Or
said that, I
vice
don't
versa.
need to be delayed. If
Yeah.
anything, I'd running to be put forward for a renewal.
Yep.
Add to the wish list. Thanks.
All right, Alex, you have a short question?
Yeah, what's the threshold for start works notices? Because we, this is more of a personal one, but we had no parking outside our street for 2 days. Or no parking signs outside of our street for 2 days. And I could drive up fine, but there wasn't any works happening and they took them away, but we didn't receive a notice in the first place. So it's just a bit of a shock for the residents down the street. Does that seem like it would be a mistake rather than?
Yeah,
sounds like
I think it's supposed to be a week, at least a week before. I mean, we normally, I think, try and get them out 2 weeks before for our own.
Even if there's like no works, but what it's going to do.
It sounds like a mistake.
And like nearby streets, if there's not work happening on your street, but there's traffic management or road cones or no parking, would you also need to start works notice normally for that as well?
It's normally just the streets that are directly affected.
So even if there's traffic management and stuff down your street or.
I mean, if you've got.
Sorry, through the chair, it depends on the level of traffic management. If it's just warning signs say that there's stuff happening on the next street, I'd say no.
Sorry, I mean like more like the no parking.
But if there's no parking and stuff like that, then yes, you should be notified.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And is there anything else to add or? If we can?
No, I think you've heard Mina.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Come to the.
Thank you, everyone.
No,
Cheers.
shall we close with karakia? We're here, ki te nui, kia wātia, kia mama, te nāko, te tinana, te wairoa, te ara takata. We are rā e rongo, te iria, ake kiro, kia tina, hui e tai.
Yeah, so